Okay, the time now is 7 p.m. on Thursday, May 21st. I'm calling to order the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission meeting. David, can you help with the roll call?
Yes, Chair. Chair Gamu,
Yes.
Vice Chair Eshbet,
Here.
Commissioner Mahdi Patla, Commissioner Marcy,
Here.
or Wolf.
Here.
Have a quorum with Commissioner Mahdi Patla absent.
Okay, thank you, David. The next one item is approval of minutes. This is the April 16, 2025 minutes. And yeah, action here is to review the minutes and approve it. Do have the commissioners, do you have time? Do you need time to review the minutes, or if anyone is ready to proceed, then I need someone to.
If we could then move to approve the meeting minutes from April 16th.
Second?
I second that.
All right, thank you. And we have Vice Chair Eshelberg move the motion and to approve the minutes. And we have Commissioner Wolf seconded. We have a motion on the table. David, you can start with the.
Yes, so with respect to approval of the April 16th, 2025 minutes, how do you vote? Chair Gamu,
Yes.
Vice Chair Eshbet?
Yeah.
Commissioner Marcy, Commissioner Wolf. Motion passes.
It's seconded by?
Commissioner Wolf.
Motion passes 4-0. Commissioner Mahdi.
Thank you. Thank you, David. So with that, let's, David, do you have any postponements?
No.
Thank you. And now this is the oral communications. This is the oral communications for the public. Public can speak for 3 minutes. Do we have any speaker cards? No speaker. Thank you. With that, I will close the oral communications portion and then move on to the written communications. Do we have any written communications ready?
We do not.
All right, thank you. And with that, let's move on to the first item on the agenda. This is the old business, bicycle facilities improvements. So this item was previously reviewed by the commissioner. It's coming back again with the proposal, and David would give us an update on the bicycle facilities improvement item, and then we'll look for recommendations from the commission. All right, David, please go ahead with the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chair. As Chair Ganga mentioned, this was an item that has come to the commission several times in the past, most recently back in February, where the commission received a presentation on potential locations for artistic bike racks around town that is going to be substantially funded by a contribution from the Rotary and partially funded by city money that the council approved as part of the city work plan item. There were 6 locations, as I mentioned, that were presented, and at the February 20th meeting, we heard some feedback from the commission that we have worked to address those concerns, come back to you this evening with the resolution of those concerns. One was the desire to only install racks that had a capacity of greater than 2 bikes. There were a couple of the designs that were submitted that we understood could only hold 2 bikes, and given the cost of the racks and just the desire to accommodate as many bikes as possible, there was commission wanted us to ensure that we could accommodate more than 2 bikes at any of these locations. The second concern that we heard was the potential for public safety risk from some of the apparently sharp edges or corners that some of the racks appeared to have. And finally, just to confirm the suitability of all of the locations, there were a couple of locations that had potential issues either with the commission or with staff. And so we wanted to make sure that they're all suitable and ended up revisiting a couple of the locations and have some revised recommendations for those. So with respect to the first of the concerns relating to the number of bikes that can be accommodated, the manufacturer of the bike racks were consulted and did confirm that the racks can hold a greater number of bikes than previously estimated, and that the number that was originally told to us by the manufacturer is an average for adult bikes, but likely more can be accommodated depending on the size of the bike and the configuration of it. So the counts shown on the left column are the number of bikes that were originally estimated, and the new count is what is a revised count for the manufacturer. So as originally 26 bikes were estimated to be accommodated, the revised count now is 32 bikes. And you see that a couple of the racks still show a 2 in their bike count, but it is likely that those you could accommodate more bikes depending upon how they're configured. And some of those are actually pretty close together in location, like the Cafe Latte and the Wow Tea racks. With respect to the corners and the edges, we were told that domed caps are used on any miter type angles that are greater than 80 degrees. Those provide a blunter corner, and we're showing a shark design where the angles are great and where the domed caps would be provided. And the pipe connections are generally grinded smooth and are more blunt than appears on the two-dimensional drawings that the manufacturer has provided. You see on the right, they do look pretty sharp, but if you look at the 3D images on the left, they are actually not as sharp as they appear. And in fact, they're very similar to what you would typically find at a typical steel handrail. So there's not a risk from any kind of injury associated with brushing up against the edges or the corners of the bike racks. The locations, these are the 6 locations that have been finalized with the Rotary and with the commissioners that have been involved and with city staff. So the first location, the milk barn at McClellan Ranch. So this location is going to replace an inverted U-bike rack that is currently next to the milk barn. You recall the original location at McClellan Ranch was near the blacksmith shop. That didn't work for a variety of reasons. So this is a location that is acceptable for city staff and for the Rotary. For the Memorial Park location, the area that was settled on is shown there near the top of the aerial. It's just north of the gazebo along the path. That is the shark design. This hasn't changed. This is the library field location for the chat bubbles located there in the little park bulb out area, probably a little further from the tree than that bike is shown so that we don't interact or affect the regrowth of the tree. Wilson Park, this is same location as before, near the toddler playground along that little asphalt widened area that you see that bike parked at. And finally, the Cafe Latte and the Wow Tea locations, which remain unchanged. Those are located in the park strip, the wide park strip, in front of those 2 business establishments. And like I said, one of those can only hold 2 bikes, but you're basically getting 2 racks that are very close to each other. So, at least 6 between the 2 of them. And that concludes my update. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, so I think I don't see any speaker card, so we can directly go for, deliberations if you have questions. Maybe you can start with questions.
I have a question. I thought, when we went to McLaren Ranch, that the was 4 instead of 2. That was my understanding. And you mentioned 2, from 4
It
to
was the information I was given. Yeah.
Actually, the capacity is 4.
Is it 4? Okay,
So we'll give
even
it-
better.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Mounting 2 and 2 on both sides or?
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So I think
That's good for that clarification.
So which one is, four, say?
The wagon wheel?
At McLaren Ranch,
Oh,
which takes the capacity from, I think, from 4 to 34.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that.
any other question?
And my understanding is that these would likely be installed pretty imminently, that the money from the Rotary needs to be spent pretty soon, and the Rotary has, they'll be responsible for coordinating the actual installation, including whatever excavation, pouring of the concrete, installation of the racks. They will be getting a permit from the city, a no-fee permit for that work because they are in city right away. And that allows us to also, inspect to make sure that the installations are done correctly and it's all safe. And we will be convening a meeting before they're installed with our grounds crews to make sure that there's no risk of damaging sprinkler heads or anything else that might be. It'll be a coordinated effort.
Talked about the cost last time. I think if I understand correctly, so the cost to the city is not higher as if we would be installing a standard basic or whatever. All the incremental costs will be covered by external funding Rotary.
Yeah, our cost is what it would be if we were installing a typical like converted U rack. It'd be
Yeah. Yes.
above and beyond road. And that allows us to still hold on to a lot of the the $50,000 that council allocated for the project so that we can still install a lot of the inverted U racks. We'll have to figure out in a later meeting where we're going to put those, but that allows us to still get a lot more bike racks installed throughout the city.
Curiosity on the side for Cafe Latte and Walty.
Mhm.
One of the racks is perpendicular to the road and the other one is parallel. Is that?
That's just the way it was shown. We can, whatever you feel is the best, we can accommodate.
Yeah, I don't have any particular opinion, but I was thinking when we bike one out, because they are close to one another, maybe.
Yeah.
Consistent, either one way or the other, I think would make sense, but.
Yeah, I guess it would, there's enough room in the park strip, so it doesn't really matter in terms of, it's not gonna affect how many bikes are accommodated, and it's probably more a question of the visibility. If you want it more visible, like from riding along the street or the sidewalks or that's something we're happy to work with Rotary to figure out when installed. The city doesn't have a preference.
So this can be decided as part of the kind of installation process.
No more question. I'm sorry, Glenn.
I just had one question. Need to check out permits for this one?
There is an encroachment permit that is needed just because it's work in the city property. Anybody that does any work on the city property has to pull an encroachment permit so that we have a record of the work so that we can inspect it. Generally, if it was some contractor, there would be a fee, but we're not charging a fee in this case because it's a city sponsored project. And so we just need the permit so that there's a record of the work. And there are certain requirements that the permit lists that need to be followed just in the interest of overall safety. Underground service alert has to be called prior so they can come out and mark gas lines and that sort of thing in the field. So we make sure that, we don't blow up the block when we're installing anchor bolts, that sort of thing. And all that information is contained within the permit. And we just need to make sure that they're aware of that. It's not a major.
What's your goal for having those installed?
My goal in terms of timing, no preference. I think actually the Rotary is driving the schedule at this point. So, but my understanding is it's going to happen pretty soon, like next month or two.
Oh, okay, great.
Sorry, I have a question,
Mhm.
like, for the one on the, I had 3 points I noted down, but looks like one of them, we're getting like, 4 bikes can be parked right in the wagon wheel. But anyway, so for the wow, T, right, so is it possible to have two of such, racks installed? Because it looks like we have enough space. In all of these, there are two things, like one is here, the other one is the wagon wheel, and the third one is in the library field. Because these are the places where it's frequented by, public, and they do bring bikes. And so it might be beneficial to have same design, just one more of it installed, and that way you get more space.
The city is fine with that. It's up to the Rotary if they want to fund an additional rack. We're happy to pay the city share based on the capacity of the rack. They would like to install an additional one.
Another way would be to replace the ice cone by this
The coffee.
coffee, because that has four.
Oh, it looked uniform into
Then it's the same, I mean, that achieves the same
That
goal,
doesn't
it
cost.
probably doesn't add cost. So get rid of the ice cream, but put 2 coffee mugs on those places, and then you.
I believe the order had been placed for these.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay,
So probably replacing a design wouldn't be feasible, but adding one, I would think would be something that could be looked into by the order.
do we need to have an action or anything, or you will directly ask them?
Yeah, I can just talk to them. Yeah.
Same thing for wagon wheel, because you have a lot of space there, it's just that if they wanted to have, they're generous enough to fund one more on that place and as well as on the library field.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have that conversation with them. Yeah, I don't know how the purchase of these fits within their overall budget. So how much, money would be left for additional racks, that's up to them. But I can relay the message that couple more.
I think the issue that at least on the McLellan one, not the library field, that on the restaurant, that there is the location was there were multiple factors at play. One of them was visibility, to make sure that if people go into the visitor center or go to the blacksmith shop, that they can keep an eye on their bikes. And there is not, like, when we discussed with the Parks and Recs Commission, they told us that there were not that many slots of spaces where you could do that, because there is like a bugs garden or plants garden somewhere, there's a memorial tree, so it's not like we can go and say, you can pick that.
That was a challenging spot to find it.
So, yeah. One thing, by the way, that we discussed, and maybe that's different, it's not related, is the bike entrance to the McLellan trail is not marked at all. And the people from the Parks and Rec Commission told me the entrance to the trail is here for the bikes. And I was like, okay, that's not marked anywhere. So maybe it's something to look at together with the Parks and Rec staff and commission, because I think we can do a much better job at, guiding the cyclist to the right trail, as opposed to getting with your bike directly into the pedestrian zone, which is what I did naturally. So maybe something to do better.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions, comments on this topic?
Thank you.
Okay, so you.
thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you.
We can conclude this agenda item. One for next. The next one is new business. This is the Vision Zero action steps. The city council approved their Vision Zero action plan mid of last year. And this one is to review the update from the staff on, the current status as well as next steps.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll provide a really general overview of kind of what has been done in the world of Vision Zero and what my proposal is for where we go from here. I would certainly be looking for feedback from the commission on thoughts in terms of like next steps and what you would like to see. So just generally, following adoption of the Vision Zero, we've made progress in advancing many of the safety strategy implementable actions. Our next steps are intended to build organizational momentum and institutionalize Vision Zero into specific capital programs and policies. So some of the achievements that we've had, which relate to Vision Zero, grant awards, a $3.5 million HSIP grant that the city received for installation of 35 new speed feedback signs. And I've indicated on the right column the strategy from the Vision Zero plan that these kind of relate to. So you can see how these all relate back to the plan. That's a project that is currently in design, and we're mapping out locations for those speed feedback signs. And it's a 65% design for Sean?
Yeah,
Project is that now 65% design. So that's a project that is very much in progress right now. Corridor and high injury network improvements, and these are projects that are not any news to you. TDA 3 funding, which we use to stripe the buffered bike lanes on De Anza Boulevard, which was a high injury network corridor from our Vision Zero plan. That work was completed in December, January this year. And then the Stevens Street Boulevard Phase 2A protected bike lane project, another high injury network corridor improvement that we've finally begun to actually move forward. We got past the, I call it a council hurdle, where they were looking at potential projects to defund, and that was one that was being considered. It is not being defunded and is moving forward, plan, a little late, but moving forward. So I don't have a start date for when you'll see work in the field yet, but we've already started getting submittals from the contractors and very much moving forward. Crosswalk upgrades, high visibility pedestrian crossings have been installed at priority intersections to enhance safety. And these include crosswalk at De Anza and McClellan that was done as part of the McClellan Phase 3 project last year, as well as a new crossing at Stevens Creek and Mary in front of De Anza College, which was just installed a week or two ago, very recently. So making things safer for pedestrians. And then public education campaigns. So we've been trying to be very active in public education, which is a high priority from Vision Zero. And some of the things that we've been doing, which isn't shown on the slide, but we've worked with the school districts, both the CUSD and the Fremont Union School District. The CUSD has been sending distracted driving public service announcements, emails to the families every month. Fremont Union High School District posts materials on their website every month as well. For city staff, we've been encouraging safe driving at each of our safe routes to school working group meetings and our internal public works staff meetings. Begin with a safe driving lesson from our safe routes to school staff. So there's certainly a lot more education to be done, but we're making progress in that respect. So what we see as next steps for Vision Zero, I know this is something, Chair, you're interested in, that's launching the Vision Zero Task Force, which we have not done yet. This would be an interdepartmental effort coordinated by the Public Works Department, City Manager's Office, where we would also have other partners such as Santa Clara County Sheriffs. This has not been done mostly because we wanted to make some progress on the other items and just because of resources and focus, a lot of that being on the active transportation plan right now. So our proposal is following the adoption of the active transportation plan, which is currently scheduled, anticipated for the beginning of 2026, February-ish. We dive into the Vision Zero Task Force, and we would have the ability to incorporate elements, recommendations, programmatic policies from our Vision Zero plan I'm sorry, from the active transportation plan into the work that is going to be done as part of the task force to advance the Vision Zero strategies. Next step is we really need to develop a sustainable funding strategy. Many of the implementable actions in Vision Zero require money or staff resources to move forward. My request for the next fiscal year is going to be for $150,000 a year to vote from general fund, or if we can get grant reimbursement, all the better, for implementation of the Vision Zero strategies. And some items up there that I anticipate using the money for, and these all relate back to strategies in the Vision Zero plan, are develop a bike ped vehicle count program to guide evidence-based decision-making. These are things also that are going to be supported in the active transportation plan that we foresee. Doing intelligent transportation system upgrades around town that help to advance safety, such as adaptive traffic signal control to better coordinate traffic movement, active pedestrian detection systems, which we've discussed before, but those are the things that can delay delay conflicting green, basically extending the pedestrian clearance times if there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, so that we don't get cars driving through the intersection while the slow pedestrian cross. Delivering quick build projects to improve pedestrian visibility and reduce crossing distances at key intersections. I think a lot of the quick build projects should probably be focused on pedestrian safety. And then integrate Vision Zero related capital projects into our updated traffic impact fee. A schedule for the traffic impact fee update hasn't been set, but we've been in discussions with the city attorney's office, which is probably going to be taking the lead on the traffic impact fee. We established our traffic impact fee in 2017. Contains a lot of projects that are focused more on capacity enhancements. This would give us an opportunity to include projects that are focused more on safety, to be in line with Vision Zero goals and policy. Also, next steps, pursue additional grant funding for projects on the high injury network corridors. And some sources of grant funding are shown here. These are mostly sources that we've been able to leverage in the past. These include Measure B, Safe Streets for All, OBAG, Active Transportation Plan, which is a grant program, TDA3, which is guaranteed funding. That's what we use for DeAnza. That's what we're using for our Active Transportation Plan. HSIP and Office of Traffic Safety, which is funding our bike and ped education, elementary, middle school bike and ped education currently. And again, focusing on quick build solutions to enhance pedestrian crossing safety. A couple of corridors that come to mind that we would recommend focusing on our Homestead Road, because it has been the focus of Safe Routes to School study, of which a 35% plan set has come out of, but there's no money to advance any further at this time. So to the extent that we can maybe move forward on some of those improvements through our own means, we would like to do so. And then also Bollinger Road, which is another corridor that we know needs some pedestrian safety. We'd like to do more public education, specifically targeting youth and seniors. The youth education would be in coordination with back to school campaigns, continuing with and even augmenting, if we can, our in-class education programs. And then we would like to incorporate presentations at the senior center to target seniors who are particularly vulnerable population on our roadways. Branding and engagement tools. We want to build a community facing identity, brand the project, establish a near miss reporting platform for engagement And this is something that actually we've already started to research and develop the near miss reporting platform. We've had with our attorney's office to discuss risk associated with establishing this platform and what we can and cannot do. We all agree it's a good idea, but we just wanted to be able to do it mindfully. So that's something that we're currently acting on. Engineering improvements, we would like to complete the installation of the 35 speed feedback signs that I mentioned earlier, and also identify the next 5 priority pedestrian crossings for upgrades. Some of this will likely be informed by the active transportation plan. We obviously want to work with that and use that to identify what the priority locations ideally would be, but we think focusing on 5 pedestrian locations would be prudent. And then just long-term planning, making sure that our Vision Zero goals align with the active transportation project prioritization for future investments. We're doing everything we can as we advance with the active transportation plan to ensure that the goals and policies that we've established in Vision Zero are incorporated, and to the extent that projects within the active transportation plan that are relevant to advancing Vision Zero, that those can be prioritized in the project list so that we're able to move on those or get funding on those in a timely manner. So that concludes my presentation, and happy to take recommendation, establish where we want to go from here with Vision Zero.
Thank you, David, for the presentation. So I don't see any public speaker cards, so I think we can directly. It's a meaty topic, so we'll go with any questions that you have, and then we'll come back for discussion. I think I'll have a bunch of comments which will come to you later after we go through one round. So, Commissioner Martin, you have any?
Yeah, I have a question regarding the field projects, because the nature of the project is to do something quick. And I see here, we have 2 big projects in short term and medium term. So I wanted to understand what's different. My assumption would be, for example, put a bunch of bollards on a section for pedestrians, or something to pedestrian island is something that's easy to make.
Mhm.
So what is it that's needed to make that happen long term as opposed to short term?
It just depends on the scope of the project, really. You know, if it's a project that is as simple as bulbing out a corner to lower speeds as cars go around, or to reduce a crossing distance, you know, that we can throw up some bollards and call it a day, then that's a short-term improvement that we can do easily. If it's a more substantial project, but can still be considered quick build, like you want to enhance a pedestrian crossing, but that involves putting up a bunch of advanced signs, pedestrian actuated flashing lights, you know, something that's going to take more staff resources to install, but beyond that, take a funding source to complete. Because just like plastic bollards, we can do pretty much within our operating budgets. The flashing beacons are several thousands of dollars, and so that's money that we just don't have discretionarily in our operating budget. We have to have a dedicated source for those funds. It didn't always used to be that way, but things have gotten leaner. So that's the reality, and that's one of the reasons why I want to establish an ongoing pot of money. 150,000 was just a number that I developed, thinking of cost to do traffic counts and but having this money available every year, so that we can do those types of
Another question that I had was in terms of, and that's back to the quick builds as well. I mean, we know the high intersection corridors that we want to improve. How do you prioritize these sort of quick build things or actions that you want to make happen?
We're hoping that the active transportation plan can help with that, at least as as they relate to active transportation. If it's just a, vehicle crash problem, it's not gonna really come out of the ATP, but, the ATP is gonna be adopted hopefully in February or March, and so that's not too long from now. So by then we'll have a nice list of priority locations, and again, the ATP is working closely with what was developed in Vision Zero, so that they're good companion documents. And that'll provide a good list of locations.
And really strategy related to that, in terms of the metrics, I think it's a great idea to have like metrics and know how many pedestrians, bikes are circulating. Same thing, like what would be the thought process as to where to count them?
Yeah, and that's a very good question, and I don't have a good answer yet. So I know and that's something I will probably have to bring back to the commission to get some input, or you can provide it tonight. The vehicle counts is pretty clear. And part of the reason for that is within the next year or so, I'm gonna have to update all the speed limits. And I'm gonna have to get volume data on every single one of those corridors, because the data that I currently have is outdated. And so I'm gonna have a good set of, at least for that snapshot in time, it's not necessarily gonna be ongoing, but that snapshot of what kind of vehicle volume we have. For bicycle and pedestrian information, it's not as easy. Some of our intersections have the capability of counting bicycles and pedestrians today. Most of them don't. Some of the ones that don't can be updated to do that with, a firmware upgrade from the manufacturer, which are costs, and that again, something that could come out of the allocation of money. Other locations that aren't near signals that have that ability, or mid-block locations, then it'll be determining the strategy of, if it's something, are we gonna go out twice a year and close this account, or maybe we want to invest in some automated counting machines at particular key locations, so that we have a continuous record. And I'm open to any of those ideas. Looking for thoughts.
Commissioner Wu?
I have a couple questions. One is, as far as enforcement goes, I didn't, looking through the original Vision Zero plan, I didn't see that as a implementable strategy, but I mean, that's something in the short term, I see a lot of opportunity to sort of reduce bad behavior by drivers, simply by enforcing the law. I think that's something really important to me, because I live close to the intersection of Stevens Creek and Deanza, which is quite a nasty
It
intersection.
is, and luckily I see the cops out there pretty frequently at the gas station, not as frequently as I would like. Yeah.
But so I would, and I was trying to understand the status of initiated strategies, comparing that to the original Vision Zero plan. So the list of initiated strategies are those that, we don't have everything that's in the Vision Zero plan listed here, but.
No.
And that's because
I've got a separate list that I didn't want to bog the commission down with, but I've got a list that contains every strategy and, kind of a status of each one. So that's something that I can send out to you. I feel like we want to go through every single strategy tonight, but just give you an overview of where we've been and where we're going. But I'm happy to share that. But to kind of answer your question, Commissioner, the sheriffs, that's something that certainly, focusing, having them do a greater focus on certain areas, especially as they relate to Vision Zero, is certainly valuable. We do also, though, have ongoing conversations with the sheriffs about hotspots that we become aware of through our own observations or through complaints that we receive from people, and frequently asking them to monitor a certain location or do things like that. So they're a consistent partner with city staff. But certainly, if there are opportunities to engage them more directly on certain aspects, we want to look into it.
And I know there was something about online reporting, but I think one of the more important ones too, I think. This, maybe the commission is the KSIs killed and seriously injured. I think when that happens, I've tried a couple times to get information from the sheriff's department myself. Very difficult. You have to do a public request for information.
We can provide that.
And that's something I think we should be getting, as soon as they happen, we should be able to get, as long as if there's litigation, we don't want to compromise anything.
It takes time. I mean, we don't even get it when it happens. So, there's a delay between when the accident occurs and when the collision report is filed, and then it gets reported to the state, and then the state publishes the information, and then we are able to download it through like Crossroads software and things. There's a definite delay in that process. What I've done in the past and with other organizations, but this takes, the sheriffs have to be on board with this too. We can ask the sheriffs to actually send us directly the completed collision reports once they're recorded, so that we get them before the state recorded, so we have more real-time information. But then it's kind of not organized, and we got to kind of flip the report to see what happened. Sometimes they don't send it to us. So that's usually something that I'll do when there's been a specific collision that I want to get more information about, especially like if there's a bike accident and like, well, what happened? And they'll send us over the report. Unless it's a fatality, then we don't see it for a long time because the reports are that thick and there's always litigation, and it's a whole different process if there's a fatality. But as long as it's not a fatality, we can generally request the report and get it pretty timely from sheriffs. But if there's ever information you're interested in, Joel, let me know, and I can try to get it for you.
One recommendation is to use AI with reports is big like this, you can get it summary.
Once we get the report, that's the yeah, they won't even release it for months and months.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Vice Chair Silva.
So I was wondering on those speed feedback signs. 3.5 million, that's actually good money. Is that money earmarked to that, or is that
Grant.
also reusable for? Because I feel like on the other hand, the 150K for counting seems like way underfunded. Is there any way to use that money for counting?
No, the money for the speed rep signs was explicitly detailed in our grant application. In fact, we submitted several grant applications to HSIP, and this was the only one that was selected for funding. The terms are that we have to install these 35 radar speed back signs, and also some high friction surface on several of the corridors. So we can't shift that money into other items or out of the.
But for us differently, is there another grant program we could apply for the counting? Because again, I feel 150K will not get us very far. I mean, this has been coming up so many times, the counting and the need to have data for making good decisions moving forward. And it doesn't seem like 150K will get us anywhere.
Well, our request is going to be an annual allocation of 100.
Right.
So that would cover the first year, and then we will get another 150 to spend on either accounting or other programs as we decide. I'm not aware of any grant programs that fund counting. I don't know if the PDA3.
Just apply as an AI program for counting.
Yeah.
That's probably very hot and we'll get.
TDA3 may, I'd have to look and see if, and that's TDA3 money is, if we can use it, that would be good because it's guaranteed funding. It's not competitive. When we get 50 or 60,000 a year, it changes a little bit from year to year, but it's guaranteed money. And it's anything basically bike and ped related. Yeah, I don't know if counting is, but it, aside from the fact that it has to be bike and ped related, it's pretty discretionary on our part. They don't really care as long as it meets that. So it's guaranteed money. So aside from that, I'm not aware of any grants that would pay for counting. Because it's one of those sort of ongoing things, and usually grants like to rebuild something, do something that has a immediate effect that you can. Sure, but I can certainly research it.
What could be achieved with 150K in terms of counting? Is it like 10 intersections or?
No, it's more than that. So for example, the 150K would probably fund. It would more than fund the speed surveys that we want to do. So it's all 60 street segments. 64, all 64 street segments around the city, including counts, speeds, and accident analysis, which is part of that as well. So it's a pretty good pool of
There
data.
would be speed of cars and.
Yes,
So,
just cars.
right, but I guess one of the big things is counting the bicycle activity, right? I didn't hear that you specifically mentioned that.
That wouldn't happen as part of the speed survey, but that's something I would be interested in. It's information I'd be interested in collecting through other means, either through traffic signal detection or, like I mentioned, count stations or what are other ways? There's radar. So there's various ways to do bike detection. So
So is
yeah,
it a separate
I
bucket?
mean, more money would be great.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
But where is that bike counting thing? Where is that captured in which bucket?
Which strategy?
Uh-huh.
Intelligent traffic monitoring category, right?
But it's still.
Yeah, there is
Of data and metrics for bikes and feds are to be addressed.
So it's called as implement intelligent
A11 and
transportation system
A12.
upgrades, right?
Well,
Yeah, enhanced data collection, it's A12 specifically, set up periodic pedestrian and cyclist counts at standardized locations.
Yeah.
So strategy A12 from the.
So.
And is that funded or what does that mean when you say medium term or? But I'm
Yeah.
just trying to understand, when can we make progress on that? This has been coming
When
up.
we have money, yeah, I mean, it's something that.
So it doesn't seem like there's any current plans to.
Well, the current plans would be to speed surveys and counts for the speed surveys and the accident data for the speed surveys. But there's no reason if we don't have the funding that we could also start the counting for the bicycles and pedestrians.
There was a lot of ifs in the.
I know, because no one's passing out checks. But I'm all for it, yeah. And
Seems like-
with the bike commission recommendations,
Seems like grant funding would be the.
request funding, that would help.
Any more questions?
Yeah, that's a thing.
sorry, can I?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Thank you. So I think the grant awards for the speed feedback signs is listed as an achievement. I was just curious, for me, it's an achievement to put them there, but what's the outcome? How do you measure the fact that, like, can you measure the fact that cars are actually slower or, respecting the speed limits when they see that as opposed to what they were doing before the installation?
Yeah, a lot of the signs can measure vehicle speeds. That has to be taken with a grain of salt, though. The most effective way to do it is to pull out the radar gun, like you do when you're establishing a speed limit and measure, because what you don't capture through the sign or through hoses are like platooning effects. If you have one car that's going 10, it's holding up a line of 20 cars, you're going to get that as 20 cars going 10 miles an hour. You're like, great, it's working. But in reality, no, it's one car going 10 and 19 that would be going 40 if they could. Right. So with a radar gun, when you're doing a speed survey, you count for that. But we could do personal before and after counts on these locations. Post counts can can to some degree take care of the platooning. You can program, how long between hits it waits to count the next. So there are ways to do
It would be interesting to see like the before and after
it. I agree.
or it.
And those will be permanent installation?
Yes.
Locations already identified?
We are in the process of, we have draft locations identified. Yeah, it's challenging this last week because, you don't want to put it at the beginning of the corridor because the cars aren't going that fast anyway. So you want to kind of put it in the middle of the corridor, but not too far down because you don't want to speed too far. But you can't have any trees in the way. And if you put it right in front of someone's living room window, they're gonna call and complain to the city about it. So it's a challenge to locate 35. Yeah, but we're doing our best.
Oh, you have,
I said one, question about, I noticed you mentioned Bollinger Road in the presentation and. Really, that was the Bollinger Road study was correct that it was funded?
Yeah, that was gonna be in my report out, so since you brought it up, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it still doesn't, I mean, there's been 2 fatalities on Bollinger Road. According to the so how does that? So that won't affect, you can still make improvements.
Oh, yeah, we can do whatever we have money, whatever. Obviously San Jose has to be partnered because they own half the corridor. So yeah, not having that funding or the grant for Bollinger isn't gonna necessarily stop us from making improvements. And what the grant covered was traffic analysis and outreach and to look at the kind of the 2 design options that were done as part of the initial study, which was the road diet or keeping it the 4 lanes and seeing what the impacts would actually be from the road diet. But there were improvements that were still identified in that initial study for both of those configurations. Given that looks like it's gonna stay 4 lanes for the foreseeable future, there's still things that have been identified that we can move forward with that I hope would still be prioritized in our active transportation plan. And that we could include as upgrades, enhancements to help further the Vision Zero.
Probably a different item, but the Commissioner Escherbeck's points, having data is super important to make good decisions moving forward. So it's very disappointing that City Council has defunded that study because it was literally a study, if I understand correctly, about counting cars, counting pedestrians and locating the hotspots and without any sort of recommendation. And so I'm torn because I see that we're trying to be as data driven as possible when it comes to Vision Zero. And on the other side, we see council defunding the very essence of gathering data and making data driven decisions. So it's a little bit disappointing. It's outside of the control of this commission, I guess.
no, I think this is maybe I'll come to it, like I have a list of items, this is also one of the items that I have. We have a separate chapter on data-driven analysis in the Vision Zero document, right? So which means that should be important, and then we can make an effect by making a specific recommendation as part of, this review today. So that, staff can take it back to the council at an appropriate point to, get funding either in the next cycle or what. Or the thing, even before getting into the next cycle, the staff can do some analysis to find out how exactly you can do it, and then go with a proposal to the council saying that, look, this is our proposal. This is where we collect the data, either it's through our intelligent means or through other means, and then, ask them for specific funding and provide a roadmap on how we will get that.
Yes, we can do that.
But just want to make one additional point. I know I'm into data and data-driven, analyses, but I think that how does this, maybe this is a broad question, how do you account for the fact that, one, we're trying to encourage people to walk and bike, so that changes the population over time. And 2, we have a lot of development that going on in along Stevens Creek Boulevard, and hopefully we get these people, many of those people to walk and bike, so that won't come out of the data. That if you do a survey of how many people are biking, You know, I mean, just putting in a protected bike lane, in my experience, I've been in Cupertino 4 years, has enhanced the number of people that are gonna go down Stevens Creek Boulevard. And look, and that it has made a notable change.
Yeah.
So I don't know how a study, because we're kind of looking forward, we're trying to prevent injuries and serious injuries and deaths. How do you do that? I mean, there's gotta be a way of sort of like, yeah, we know that, this shows there's only one cyclist, but then if we put in bike infrastructure, we might get 100 cyclists. And,
It's notoriously challenging to predict usage. From a bicycle and pedestrian enhancement. So, I mean, you can do before and after counts of locations where you've recently installed things that may or may not indicate how well you're gonna encourage the usage, the other location that might have completely different attractors and generators. So I support the collection of data and data-driven decisions. On the other hand, there's other messaging, I think, that helps advance the cause, I mentioned this at the planning commission last week, but enhancing safety is something that's almost impossible for over the short term and with a small city to establish based on data collection, right? Like when there's one fatality a year in the city, not just bike, but just overall, unless you look at 100 years of data, you have no way to determine the trend, and you don't know how many lives maybe you saved by having this protected bike lane. No amount of data is going to show you. So it's a balance between data, this, and also realizing that there's certain benefits that are a little bit non-quantifiable.
I think the key is in the trend of the data, so long-term measurement of data. I mean, I think
Exactly.
if you see there's one bicyclist and then suddenly you make an infrastructure change and you have 50 bicyclists, that's
problem.
endorsement for what you did, and you can get a lot more funding by the sheer nature of the fact that you've seen success. If that has not changed, if there's still one bicyclist, then you have to ask yourself, was this the right project?
But then if that one bicyclist would have died if you didn't put it in,
I mean, there's always corner cases. That's why
It's
the key is to interpret the data based
Yeah.
on a longer term trend. I think you cannot look at spot.
Right.
That's
Right.
just full fallacy.
But I have a bunch of comments in here, so maybe I'll.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead and
Go ahead.
then come back from you guys, maybe you'll have also more inputs. So I did review up the whole list and then, have marked up comments, so we'll go one at a time. On the accomplishments, right, so one thing which is important here is to measurable progress. I mean, in fact, the separate column on progress metrics or progress measure. So when you say how to measure as well, for example, like one of the things that your first grant award, like 35 new speed feedback signs out of how many, right? So basically some percentage of, target, let's say you want to do 100 such signs as your goal, but then you did, how much percentage of that one. So like that, when we are reporting any accomplishments, it also needs to come with the performance measure. And that was, again, when we talk about measurement, right? That's one thing, that's one feedback. The second one is on these corridor or high injury network improvements, right? So yeah, you had identified B1 says about the priority location. Already, if you look at the high injury network, is kind of providing you the priority based upon bunch of data and community meetings and so on, right? So we don't need to wait for any more plans or anything like that. So whatever you have in the plans, and this is where actually we need to have Vision Zero task force, which would be quarterly meeting and then coming up with recommendations saying that, look, and by the way, this is not just only bicycle and pedestrian, because this is like a multimodal transportation, plan to bring in the, the high injury collisions to, or serious collision to zero, right? So, which means that you can pick up areas where easier low-hanging fruits can be starting to implement right away while you're waiting for funding to come. Like, making some signaling changes or making some intersection changes, because most of the data that shows that even if, let's say, if you take like a Dianza Boulevard, right? Which is supposed to be one of the high injury corridor, priority corridor, which it's possible that you can make incremental changes. Necessarily wait for everything to be done, which is marked up in that toolbox, isn't it? So that's something that you can look at, and that's how the cities who deploy it do it in a phased approach. That's what I would say for the second one. How do you identify countermeasures that you can immediately start deploying with available limited funding? The other one is the crosswalk upgrades. In fact, that comes under crosswalk upgrades as well, because throughout the nation, we are seeing, in fact, even our data shows that pedestrian fatalities or pedestrian related high injury collisions are raising up in the last decade, if you look at it, for whatever reason. And we see the same trend in the Cupertino city as well. So which means that you need to focus on that to see how can we, improve the pedestrian crossings. How can we improve most of these that happens at the intersections on the right turn and things like that. Can we make any improvements? That's another thing that we can take it up. This is like a D5, D2. How do you make it visibility, the crosswalk, right, for the drivers, things like that. And here again, I would say number of projects compared to the total, so you can identify measurable metrics to go after. The third one is the public education campaign. This is another thing which is very important. I see that wherever I go, we see ATP signage, and you have this QR code, people can really do it. I think this is really good. We need to do the same thing like branding and awareness. Because the whole thing about Vision Zero is the whole community needs to be aware of it, and they change the behavior as well. It's not got to always do all of that in infrastructure. And that includes the drivers, motorists, as well as who need to also take into account to prevent pedestrian or bicycle injuries as well, right?
Yeah, did you see our little logo for Vision Zero?
Yeah, you had there's a separate item on branding as well.
Yeah.
We need to do that. And the other important thing is one of the reasons why Vision Zero kind of brings in the elected officials to be part of this is because they can do a lot more in advertising, branding, and campaigning the public, because people listen to the officials and they have a lot of opportunities to meet with the public, and you could use them as well as our ambassadors to champion for this. And in fact, they have signed up on the Vision Zero document, right? So for that reason, that's another thing you can bring it up in this education campaign. The next one is that's regarding the accomplishment. And if you go to item number 2, the action plan next steps. The first one that comes up is the program management. I also, in fact, added the program monitoring as well, both A1 and A7. This is really important. I mean, we established or we have the council approved the Vision Zero document middle of last year, and this one was one of the short-term goals to establish task force who can guide not only the projects, the public works department, but also the act as because multiple stakeholders are part of that task force, like including we talked about the sheriff department, right? And including we can have a representative from the council as well, right? So how we form the composition is something that we need to come up with. But pretty much all the cities who are coming up with the Vision Zero document, the first thing is they form the task force to guide this process. Otherwise, it's not going to move forward. You don't have to wait for ATT because a multimodal transportation plan. I would say we should make a recommendation. If you have any bottlenecks in terms of getting people or something, we can ask the council for help. But I think that should be the one first should happen. As soon as possible. I would say this year.
The bottleneck is more of keeping people interested. It's easy to bring people together on a task force. It's hard to keep them coming. I think with other projects that are of similar nature. So that's something we can discuss.
We can discuss that, but the thing is we need to make an attempt, right? It's possible that you can start with maybe a 6-month cadence instead of a quarterly cadence. get them in so that you'll have enough meaty topics to really do it. But if you can look at other cities for model this, I think that's the first thing they establish, and they kind of report back to the council. They try to bring the stakeholders together in alignment and things like that. So a lot more work they can do, and I'm sure like you need to bring in interested parties into that. And after that, they can also drive the ATP as well, right? Saying that what needs to go as part of Vision Zero is a major document, but then what needs to be going into the ATP, especially for the active transportation elements of that, and what needs to go into general plan elements. If any major project comes into the city, then how do you bring those Vision Zero elements into those projects and things like that? They can do a lot more than just bicycle and pedestrian projects. I think we can look at other cities as a model to learn as well. Then in fact, they can help out on the funding and things like that, right? So the next one is on the grants and capital projects that you have listed on. Bunch of them. B1 is the priority location, right? Of course, we already have the locations there. And similarly, there is a B2, B3, like for example, list of extra safety projects are there and quick build projects are there. Those are the things again we can look at. Quick build means it doesn't mean that it's only bollards. You can do a lot more things. Like for example, Dianza Boulevard, you had a buffered bike lanes. In fact, that will create an immediate impact on avoiding pollutions rather than waiting for major infrastructure improvements, right? So that's the kind of things you pick up, right? And also any intersection related improvements, signaling, because most of the if you go and look at it, all the crashes are closer to the intersections. So which means that those changes that we can do with less budget compared to major infrastructure improvements, right? So that's the thing, like B2 and B3, we can look at it also and make recommendations about those things. The other one is on A5 and A7. This is like basically the online pollution map. So this is like our tech department was supposed to help it. And San Jose, what they are trying to do is, I think Commissioner Wolf brought up this point as well, right? So how do I find out whether, how do we make sure public doesn't have to come and ask our staff members, right? Instead, it should be automatic. If you go to San Jose website, tied to the Vision Zero, what they have done is they are pulling in data from the county or SWIRTS, this is a state database, and then trying to populate their map. So you can directly go there and then look at their city map and then click on it, and then go and look at the current active KSIs, or for that matter, any crash is available. So I think that's something that our IT can help us well, and then as part of our automation work. So we don't have to manually track it, which will take more time and productivity. We can improve the productivity here. So that's one thing. Maybe it's not that we are going to do it. We can look at our neighboring cities which are already doing it. We can learn from them. And this came up this was like 4 or 5 years ago as part of the TIC commission when this whole project. There was a cross group between Bike Commissioner and the TIC commission to look at what improvements we can do based on the bicycle pedestrian counts as well as this. 5 years ago, there were automated technologies that were available using AI, but since then, like there's a significant improvement in AI technology itself in the last 4 years, right? So which means that I'm sure like our vendors will have a lot more capabilities that they can bring to the table. So I think that's something that we can think. One is online pollution map, and the other one is about the data, which is which we can bring forward, right? And the other one is the annual report. Okay, this comes to the monitoring. The idea is to have annual report, and also 6 month once reports as well. And this is to see how we are progressing compared, because we have a goal 2040, we need to bring it to this level. Unless you're really monitoring and then tracking it and course correcting things, it's not going to happen, right? That's another reason the program management and program monitoring is really important. And I think maybe you can make the task force to do it, or programs, monitoring can be even staff, depending upon how you wanted to. You wanted to take other members to help as well, you could do that. So those are the two things. And then we haven't seen any reports being published. So this is the first time that we are reviewing it. This is not only for us. Those reports should be published for the public for consumption, as well as to the council members, saying that, hey, this is what you guys signed up on. I'm sorry, which council signed up, I should use that term. Council signed up on, and then, are we making progress? If not, how can you help us get there, right? And that will help us. These are the kind of things that will help to move the project forward. The next one is the third one, is the status of initiated strategies, right? This is where the performance-driven one, right? Before and after, that comes into picture, right? So the thing is, like, we need to find data collection is really important. This is again part of the intelligent, what was it called? Like the intelligent transportation system upgrades. I think that's something that we can go back and look at. This was 4 or 5 years ago, they had already capabilities. In fact, we did a proof of concept in some of the intersections to find out what is possible in terms of, collecting, identifying the pedestrians, identifying bicyclists, and whether they are crossing, whether that can drive the signaling improvements and things like that. I think getting the count is much, much easier than signaling improvements. And these were actually done without any privacy related issues. I think we did a lot of learnings from those pilot programs. I'm sure like now the technology is way advanced that we should be able to go and get the vendors, ask them to even give those licenses. It was more of a license, right? As an evaluation license, so that we can look into that. And if we are finding, data, then you can make the Vision Zero task force make recommendations to buy it. I'm sure like these vendors were, in fact, though at that time there were like many vendors who are coming in and wanted to really engage with the city and work with us. And I'm sure like they will do this even now that we have the plan approved. And the quick bit again, this B3 and B6, this is signal timing updates. I think you are already doing that one. The only thing is like, maybe you should include the performance metrics saying that how many signals have been already implemented versus how many you plan to do. That way, that out of 50 intersections, I'm just picking a number here, right? So, we have completed 5 and 10% of your targets are done kind of thing, right? So, and this is where it will help you in your reports. And the other one is also the quick build demonstration. That one, we don't have to wait for ATP. I saw that one. We could start now, and then as you have done with the Dianza project, like you can start doing it, and then ATP will come in. It will take some time before it kicks in, and in next year, right? So we don't have to wait for that, and we can continue to roll out improvements. And the next one is, as I said, like start identifying this again, B2 list of prioritized projects. You can start identifying and implementing, because we already have those information very well documented in Vision Zero in terms of priority, in terms of toolbox. Not that all the items in the toolbox may not be implemented. You can implement like few things here and there, and then keep adding more to it, right? So. And the other thing is like, bike detection, I already talked about it. D6 and D9, that senior awareness program, school and children safety. This one, I think I would say, like in addition, I know you already mentioned about that. In addition to that, we also need to bring in education to the motorists as well. So that's very, very, very important. This one is multimodal. The other thing is also self-interest in making sure that they are aware of. There was one crash that happened when I was just walking around our city hall area, and it was a busy intersection. Like someone was trying to drive to the library, and someone from the library was trying to cross the intersection. This is like the Rodriguez and Torrey Avenue. Some driver just stopped saying this. They started without looking for a pedestrian was crossing it. It should be right there, but at least it's evening time, daylight was setting, and so they were somehow it happened. Maybe obviously it's somebody didn't notice. Either the pedestrian did not notice the why say I mean both of them at least I was there listening to them. Both of them said that they don't know how it happened, which means that neither the pedestrian nor the motorist really watched each other. Right, and I really interested in finding out what exactly happened in that, so that we can, make these kind of crowded intersections much more safer, just for learning purposes. But these are examples, right? So I think we need to have education campaigns and more visible signage to alert the drivers, especially in those kind of areas, so that they start to or have other areas like bulbouts and things like that, which Berkeley is doing it very well, right? So to reduce the speed or make the pedestrian crossing more visible to the drivers. Those are the kind of things. Okay, let's skip that one. Yeah, stakeholder engagement, this is B5, but I think that's where the task force is again important. I would say many areas when I was going through it, like it's again coming back and pointing back to the task force. And they can definitely, if you have a task force, I'm sure like that will be very, very helpful in making. I know Commissioner Wolf brought up this enforcement point of view. I'm sure like they can, once they are part of it, they will go back and implement it. They have a skin in the program to really make things happen. Okay, and the other one is the long-term ITS. I don't think it should be a long-term, even though it's well identified as a long-term project. Now things might be, you can do it much faster, I would say.
Which one?
The intelligent transportation system. We can get modules which are incremental, right? There could be modules available for just the pedestrian count, and then while you're getting data from that, you can active signaling and things like that, right? Yeah.
Was that listed as a long term?
Yeah, it is listed as a long term in the timeline.
Yeah.
P7. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's something we can be short term.
Yeah. And everywhere I just noted down as project metrics. I'm sure like, D10, many of the medium term projects, you have said that, you've done some work. But that's a good thing, right? So it's basically an accomplishment, right? So which means that you can start to say how much you have done. Yeah, monitoring speed limits. Yeah, this is something again we need to find. I mean, I think you're already trying to do that, but that's something that you can monitor the speed limits and publish it as well, right?
So what do you mean monitor and publish the speed limits?
Basically, it's like this, right? They have a project, and they said that they have developed a RFP for a citywide speed survey project. This is what we discussed a little bit earlier. So, which means that if some of the streets are, having maybe like 20% of the time drivers are exceeding the speed limit. I mean, I think Commissioner, you brought up a point about Rodriguez, where drivers were. So this will be a real data, and then say that certain streets were dangerous because people are going to school or they are driving fast. Maybe those are the areas that we can pick up for improvements, either in terms of signaling or putting in some quick build like barriers or bulbouts to deliberately slow down people speeding in those streets, right? So those are the kind of things that would be helpful in this. That's actually AI, right? That's all I have, and that's all. I mean, I think you summarized only some parts of the whole report. Like if you go and look at that Division 0, there are 2 separate chapters, and also there's another chapter which talks about how do you do a roadmap for this one. it's already laid out, so which means that we need to start to look into it, and then somebody has to really look into it and start implementing it. And even bicycle commission, until the task force is formed, we could also put this as an agenda item and then come back. You know, it's collective mind, or we can form a subcommittee to go and review it and then, you know, make concrete recommendations that the staff can take it to the council. I think it needs more of a multiple pair of eyes looking into it and helping out to make progress. Task force, I don't know, to make it happen. So with that, I think we have a lot of inputs in here. It's good to make some solid recommendations so you can note that down and then go ahead and then implement it. My recommendation would be to really put it as a motion and then start to note down the recommendations. It may not be complete, but at least in a starting point. And David, and you know, you can take it as a guideline. I propose to, you know, initiate a motion. One of you can support it. And I saw like 4 or 5 comments that we noted down. One is we talked about education. We talked about you know, before and after monitoring. We talked about hotspots. This was all based on your feedback. Like, you know.
And I think just to make a point of order, how it's called. When we make a motion with the recommendation, that should take like maximum 4 hours of your time of staff.
Well, yeah, so this is a.
Make sure that
This is an entire staff member full-time, and a lot of this can't happen until we get funding.
Okay.
So I think this has to be, with all due respect, distilled down a little bit for a recommendation, if you're gonna make a motion.
Yeah, sure.
Is there like at least some of the basics? I mean, one of the things I heard, and I agree actually, is around this task force. So establishing the task force in a year from now, I think is a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Because if you develop this ATP and there's no input into the ATP from that task force, which is the current plan, then it's a missed opportunity. So it almost feels like that's the wrong order. It almost feels like the task force should be in place now, should be start working so that they can be having an active role in the development of the ATP. Doing it afterwards is kind of putting the cart in front.
Well, the task force. There really wasn't the intention of having a Vision Zero task force actively inform the ATP. The ATP is a community-driven project through, you know, the neighborhood meetings like we've had, the outreaches at the farmers markets and the tabling there, and then coming to the commission for input. It wasn't intended that there would be sort of an intermediary task force informing ATP development. That was more data driven from all of the data that we're providing to the consultants that you saw some of it last week or last month, in addition to a whole mess of public. So there really isn't the ability to integrate additional input from a task force Vision Zero. I think that would best come through you all if there were things that you would like to have incorporated into the ATP to
And
inform
we
it
can
that
channel
way.
that ATP as well.
Yeah,
I think what the vice chair is saying is really correct, right? Because if we had already established task force, they will be championing for it. Of course, the ATP will have its own goals on how to get it done, but some of the elements that are already defined in Vision Zero, they'll be championing for it, which means that you're having like, you know, another 4 or 8 members working for you, and I'm championing it as well to the.
we're almost at the end of the data collection for the ATP. And we're getting into the project recommendations. It's going to be based upon the data that's been collected and the input. So there really isn't a role for a task force, at least by the time we get them convened, and we don't really need a champion. We just need to complete the plan.
It's independent of that. I'm sorry, go.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think the task force has its own merits independently.
Yeah.
Right.
And having a kind of a gathering of people on a regular basis that provide input as to how to improve safety for cyclists and pedestrians in Cupertino is something that we can do no matter what.
Right.
And so I think
Exactly.
and I agree with that. So I think it has some merits. We don't need to wait for the ATP, or
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be information that's going to feed into the
Yeah.
ATP. It's just, it has some merits in and of itself.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a simple program management.
Yeah, but I mean, by the time the task force meeting get convened and the ATP is gonna be got final form.
Which is fine. I mean, that's fine. I mean, you could still expedite the forming the task force.
It's just the way it's written here right now. It looks like we are starting ramping up in winter in a year from now.
Yeah.
Ramping up in a year from now means there's output 2 years from now. And that's what I'm reacting to.
Sure.
I think that's too late.
Yeah.
So even it may not have super material impact on the ATP, maybe there is a chance of input here and there. But I think starting it earlier, I think would definitely be advised. Than
Yeah,
a year.
yes. As the vice chair was saying, it's a missed opportunity because 2 years ago, council really wanted to roll out this program. And out of this 15 years, you're lost already 2 years.
Well, I wouldn't say we've lost.
I mean, I'm just-
We've made a lot of improvements and we're
Of course,
moving on the
I think
ATP.
there was a lot of.
We've been doing other work.
But I think it's under this umbrella, and I think it's committed as a city, and I think we should probably drive it now that we are committed to it. Feels like it's energy.
The one thing we may want to do is, the chair mentioned something about, Vision Zero, some cities being successful in Vision Zero in their programs. But I know many cities have not been that successful, and they've gone out 10 years, and now they're maybe putting up even more cone, no right turns on red, speed cameras. They're trying to, because deaths and injuries have only gone up, even though they've spent a lot of money implementing these improvements, and they may be good improvements, but maybe we should find out which cities have been really successful. Cities like Cupertino, I think was it Hoboken, New Jersey's been very successful, but it's almost like a little Manhattan. It's not like Cupertino. So we need to find
Yes.
similar cities and find out what they've done to be successful. Because, if you look at the there's 5 principles that make us sort of safe system. We have input on, there's safe road users, we would have, that's something we could have input on. Safe vehicles, probably we're not gonna have any input on that. And safe speeds, we could have input on that. And safe roads, input on that, and post-crash care. That's getting to the ER, but it's supposed to involve the forensic analysis after the incident. So, and then, whether or not, maybe the injury could have been less severe. Whoever's riding a helmet or things like that. So, but I think we need to be focused on what those issues that we can have a positive impact on the Vision Zero program. And the way I look at it is that it's going to be more dynamic. I mean, making a motion in my mind I think is maybe a little premature to do that, but it's like we need to, because it's difficult. As far as what I read about Vision Zero, for the most part, cities are having difficulty reducing the injuries and deaths.
Yeah, you're absolutely right? So there's cities like this, right? So it needs to be community needs to come together and actively work on it. And then find out what issues are working and what doesn't work. For example, San Francisco has a very good metrics. They collect the data and then they say that what worked. For example, you're saying that, well, let's do this kind of an improvement. It's already part of the toolbar. And then 2 years down the road, they come back and look at it. Okay, whatever data we gave and then the projects that were done before and after was not making any improvements. So then you can come back and make changes saying that, no, that doesn't work. Maybe something else worked elsewhere. And so that's what we should be doing. So unless you course correct and keep on doing it without any feedback, then what you're saying makes sense and may not make sense. And similarly, are we learning continuously from best known practices of other cities, as you said, right? If New Jersey has really something has worked and what didn't work there, and then do it. Like, in fact, before we came up with this Vision Zero program, we invited our neighboring cities, we monitored the neighboring cities as part of the sub team and asked the staff members to come and present what worked for them. And we, in fact, that was learned and that was the input guiding, that inputs were guiding principle for our development as well. So I think that's something that we could or do it. And this is what I was saying, like, there should be people who are dedicated, who are looking into this. And if you think that, having a staff member, like how we have a safe road to school coordinator, if you think that, you need to have more dedicated staff time from the council saying that, look, we need to have 50% of a staff time for being a Vision Zero coordinator. They will coordinate the task force, they'll come to BPC for asking for inputs or go to some other commissions to ask for inputs and so on, right? So that's another thing that we can make that recommendation, use us, right? We can make that recommendation to, we can use that, we can make a recommendation to the council and we can take it to the council, right? So.
Is there grant funding available for Vision Zero implementation?
For a staff member? Grants that fund staff are difficult. They're difficult to find, they're difficult to manage.
Yep. But should we?
But for the specific elements, easier.
Our personal recommendation, to make a motion today would be for things that are very actionable.
Exactly.
And don't take too much staff time.
Yeah.
So I have to remind that I think, and maybe there are more, the task force, I think, starting with the, starting the setting of meetings, just basic stuff like who do we want in the meeting? What's the agenda? When do we want to have this meeting as the first one and see how it goes? Maybe it doesn't work at all and we don't need that meeting. I don't know, but let's start somewhere. And the other one that I noticed also, and I want to thank the chair for being diligent about looking around what works and what doesn't. Just asking in terms of the data and the map with injury, just asking to San Jose, for example, okay, where do you put the data from? What was the process in order, like, are there any sort of authorizations that need to be done? I think this type of stuff doesn't need to be like in the solutioning mode where we're going to be like, okay, we need that map from Google Maps and we're going to pull these APIs. But just asking, okay, where do you pull the data from? What was the authorization? Just to understand, like, what are they doing? So I would be in favor of that.
Because I'll start with saying that, we expedite the formation of the Vision Zero task force. That would be the first item. Very well. We don't have to have a laundry list of things, but we can start with that and then we can add more to it. Yeah. Expedite the formation of the Vision Zero task force.
What was the first thing, what the formation?
Expedite the formation of.
Expedite?
Can we make it time bound?
Yeah, we can say that in Q3 or. Form Vision Zero task force by Q3.
By beginning of Q3 or at the end of Q3? Beginning of Q3 is July 1st.
July. I think you will need some time to find the composition and all that stuff. 2 months or 3 months you will need from now, which is June, July, August, maybe September, beginning of, by September.
Yes.
25.
That was a good one.
Research San Jose collision map.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that I'd love to see is there a way to look for funding or grant funding for those monitoring and counting, tooling, data collection, yeah, I think that's the better. That would be in support of triangularism, the A12, right?
So this other one of the intelligent, maybe that's also related to that one intelligent transport system to see whether you can bring in technology for that. I mean, we don't have to state this, but all I'm saying is like, it's possible that you can also get some evaluation on. So that we can start to try it out.
And I think we should keep this list fairly discreet, like not too big, to just.
Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise it becomes a big laundry list.
Exactly, that's why I'm saying, maybe we should keep like 3 or 4
Yeah.
items.
Yeah.
So we're good with this?
Is it like, yeah, you had like a before and after monitoring, it should be also part of this, or?
That we part of data collection efforts.
That would happen later.
Okay, data collection efforts, yeah, that's true, that's true. Once you have data collection, you can always do it before and after.
Do we want to add anything regarding, researching cities, comparable cities, the successful Vision Zero plan?
Yeah, that's a good point, that will take a lot of time as well.
Yeah,
So
that's a lot more than 4 hours.
So it's another thing which on that specific point, I think it's possible that some of us can do the research and also maybe we can have an agenda item in future specifically talking about
That would be helpful.
that item. We had a subcommittee used to do that before, we didn't do a subcommittee, but if anyone is interested, have time, we can help that agenda item.
One city per commissioner.
Yeah, that's
What community has to do too.
Let's vote on that.
Right.
giving an action as well. All right.
I think it's a good list.
I think this is good for now. Maybe we can, and then the next thing I would say, we don't have to put it in here, but in 2 or 3 months down the road, we can have an item to discuss.
Yeah, we'll bring it.
Yeah, low hanging opportunity, you're already doing that. We don't have to say that, right? Some of the high injury network,
Yeah, I mean,
you're already
we're doing stuff now. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Say, anyone like to move the motion or?
I'm moving.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Vote.
Yes, I was just looking.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, so,
So the motion on the screen, how do you vote? Chair Ganga?
yes.
Vice Chair Eshelbeck?
Yes.
Commissioner Marcy?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
So that, let's move on to the next item. Agenda, which is the staff and commissioner activity report. Staff, David.
Thank you, Chair. Let's see, it was already brought up about defunding of Bollinger Road Safety Study. One update.
What was it like? Any?
The Bollinger Road corridor safety study was defunded by the city council.
Okay, okay.
And so we will be returning the grant money. We never got the grant money. But we will be declining the grant.
And if it all comes, can it be assigned to other programs?
Not Cupertino. It'll probably go back in a big pot for the next round. But that had been stalled anyway at federal level. And
Oh,
it was at risk regardless, honestly. So
that's it.
Staff took the Stevens Creek Corridor Vision Study to the Planning Commission last week, and the Planning Commission also approved or recommended that the city council accepts the study with a couple of a few additional qualifications, one of them reaffirming the bike commission's qualifications. So that was a success for staff. So we will be scheduling a time to go to the city council to have them accept the study. That hasn't been determined yet which meeting date we'll be going to.
Do you know when is it coming to the council?
I don't know.
You don't know.
It was originally going to be the 3rd, and then I think it might get moved to the 17th, and it might ultimately even get moved beyond that. So it's still being discussed at the city manager's office.
I see. Okay.
Do
we know if you are part of that task force, right? Or
the working group.
the working group? So was there any other progress from other cities?
Other cities have made more progress. San Jose's done, their council has accepted it. Santa Clara is going to their city council, I think, maybe this week or next week. Just ask them to accept it. I'm gonna put it on consent and see how it goes, but they're ahead of us.
I see. Yeah, I remember like they had BPC, BPAC, there was recommended making some changes. I couldn't find what the changes were, but at least I saw the minutes that they wanted some changes.
Yeah, I don't have those handy, but they're moving forward. On June 3rd, staff going to the city council, our staff going to our city council with for a discussion to have the council, and at the council's request, have the council weigh in on commission oversight of transportation projects and how that will be divided among the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission and the Planning Commission. So we've given them several options in the staff report for their discussion. Staff held a couple of successful public meetings a couple of weeks ago for the active transportation plan. One virtual meeting on Zoom and one in-person meeting. We had a very good turnout for the Zoom meeting, about 35 to 40 participants. And a decent turnout for the community hall. Not as many. I think a lot of people attended the first meeting on Zoom, but good representation from the community. So that was a success.
And community can continue to provide input, right?
The website's the portal's still open for.
From the June 5th.
Is that
June 5th.
And even after that closes, you can still contact staff and write a book. And that concludes my report.
okay? So I have an update that we had mayor's mayor and commission chair meeting today, and I think they made it more organized now, which means that all of us, the chair of the commissions, need to really pre-populate what we are going to say, like 3 bullet items, so that every commission has that information populated in the document, and then the chair and the mayor can review this, and we get a handout of all these things before the meeting, so I don't have to sit and take notes. And also they're going to make it from now on, they're going to make this available to the public as well, to be transparent. So which means that after this meeting, they're going to publish this as well. I think this is going to be part of mayor's activity, or I don't know which part of the. If you go and look for Cupertino and then city mayor's update or something like that, and they Google brings up that page so that all the mayor's updates are coming in there. I think it might be coming up in one of those places, or I don't know where else they want to put this in there. So in future, you want to have the have this document. And then what else? In fact, there was a talk about, when we talk about productivity improvement, there was a discussion there as well as mayor was interested in seeking input in how you can help improve the productivity by bringing in AI related, tools to the city as well. So, of course, I think the Tech Commission took that as an action to, go and pull this together. The city also has some initiative going on within the staff members for kind of working on pulling together some proposals, I believe. Okay, and from our commission, I gave an update regarding the Vision Zero, of course, action, on the Vision Zero study that we approved, and then we also said that we reaffirmed the city's commitment on Resolution 19089. I think the Planning Commission also gave an update, and they also mentioned kind of the same thing, resolution. I just brought up the transit alignment on 280, and they brought up the different. We shouldn't use the main the active transport
Grade separation.
grade separation.
They wanted to focus
Yes,
on.
that's what they mentioned about it. What else? And I also mentioned to the mayor that the rest of the people that we are going to discuss about the Vision Zero action plan next step. So kind of bring the awareness to the rest of the commission. So. And other than that, I think this will be published so that I don't want to go through the whole list. And if you have any specific question that you wanted to know, I can talk to you. Otherwise, you will get this published. And that's pretty much what I have. And any updates from the
Well, I have two. So I almost got run over by a car this morning from the Eaton Elementary. So
Wow.
anyways, as a pedestrian. Yes, a couple of things. We organized Back to Work Day as a commission. It was a great success. We had more than 100 cyclists stopping by. Some coming as far as Santa Cruz going to Palo Alto.
Wow, okay.
So that was impressive. But some of them were going from Los Gatos to Menlo Park. So pretty impressive. Yeah, it went very well. The weather was good, but not too hot. And we had a lot of volunteers, which is going to bring me to my next point. Being a German citizen as well, I'm going to be blunt. I was disappointed by the lack of support by the Commission. I remember last year, Commissioner Chaganga, you had brought some water. We sent the email about kind of distributing the tasks for that project, and that was distributed to all the commissioners. I know Commissioner Wolf could not join, but he had organized their event last year, and not seeing any support whatsoever from the rest of the commissioners was a little bit disappointing, to be very blunt. That being said, it was a great success thanks to the help of the volunteers of Walk Back Cupertino, who also helped in great numbers. But yeah, other than that, I want to thank city staff for helping again with the canopies. They were great. They were on time. They did everything. They picked up everything afterwards. So thank you. Much lot of appreciation for staff. Thank you for that. The last thing that I had, and I think we all received the email regarding the Foothill extension, county project. That brings me to that reminding me that there had been this horrible accident a couple of months ago on Foothill Boulevard because there is no this allegedly or DUI driver. So is there some more details about that accident? Because that immediately caught my attention. Looking at Foothill extension to Cupertino, I was like, okay, maybe there is an opportunity here to make sure that we have a safer corridor going all the way from the other cities down to Cupertino, make sure that this doesn't happen again. So it would be great to have more information as soon as possible.
nothing, the sheriffs are still investigating it, putting together their.
Okay, thank you. Oh, there was also an ATP, the data collection on the same, was it, was it done? Because remember, like you were, David, you were asking for, having a table for, getting data on the active transportation, or input on there. Was it, did you have a table as well, or city was?
Yes.
on it?
Oh,
At
the bike to work.
At the bike.
Yes.
Surprise, surprise, cyclists love bike lanes. Cyclists love bike lanes.
Okay.
So we had a bunch of stickers. The more bike lanes, and we had a bunch of +1, +1, +1, +1.
All right, that's good. Thanks for that, Dave. Anything else? Any other commissioners? Okay. All right, so that, let's move on to the next item, which is the future agenda items. Can we bring up the future agenda? So. Yeah, it comes July and November, this fine, we discuss together later. Bike rack location, I think we have already done, you can remove that, yeah. And then Vision Zero next up, maybe you can bring it, this is the meeting, but then, we want to have a follow-up. Please. What month will that be? August. August, yeah. Just before our Vision Zero task force gets formed, so we can see it. Okay, I'll vote on that. Safe road to school update, I think we need to have that, do we? Yeah, maybe it's something that we can bring it up, maybe next month if possible, then,
I can try.
safe road to school.
Try.
Okay.
That's very good.
Okay.
Availability and.
And then anything else, you want to bump up to the top of the list? Grants, that's fine. We already have the studies. So Bollinger Road corridor, then we can remove that from that list.
What's the speed limit studies? What's that?
That's what I was referring to earlier when we're gonna do the citywide
Oh,
surveys,
okay.
orders, yes.
But no,
It might get pushed beyond that because of the additional budget I'm gonna need for parents,
So it will be fall, winter, or?
possibly, or maybe even later.
It looks like here, oh, so this one here.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
Okay,
I need to identify.
yeah.
just remove that thing.
Maybe you can roll the timeline,
Mhm.
or maybe end of the year.
Is that, Safe Routes to School, is that on twice here now? On the project, and I think it was up before.
So are these projects active? I thought that was, maybe we should use the more active projects in here.
Yeah, Carmen Road Bridge.
Harvard Road, which is not even,
Let's eliminate that.
yeah. We used to have that, but I think it's not,
Yeah, Vision Zero next steps, we already have.
Yeah.
Doing both interchange, let's leave that on. Staff update on CIP projects. Yeah, we've
Was
leave,
it, was Caltrans supposed to do something at that interchange? Is that,
yeah, build a new one.
but that's not.
Right, so the design is already ready.
Yeah, we're trying to get funding secured for it. Yeah, so so there's a lot lot of pieces on that right now, but I'm hoping I can bring that back to just for, you know, information I have for you all. over the
Yeah,
next few months.
yeah.
Do we have the Tanya?
Tell me, I was about to ask that question.
No, me that, I mean,
Yeah. Where is it? Like, maybe we should bring it up for,
It's,
I thought that we got the funding for that, right? Or-
yeah, it's a little bit,
Good, yes.
it's a little bit stalled because of an issue with trees and apple,
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah.
active transportation plan.
We already had that.
Yeah, but it-
Teams and an image search.
I think, I say number more, expressed her support for Tanya, during the last council meeting.
So,
Sorry, Vice Mayor.
visitation was there, fine. I think it's a pretty good list. What is the lead pedestrian walk interval, what we want to do there?
Yeah, I don't know.
I know that should be, well, it's not education, right? It's more, yeah, it's not education, even if we wanted to. Are you, is it more of a signaling improvements? Right?
Well, delete that.
Move it into projects.
Do we have, yeah, any projects that are looking at this? Or is it part of your signaling? So,
We implemented, a couple intersections we have implemented that here.
maybe we can
Most
call it,
intersections we have not. There's one intersection actually that we recently put in a delayed pedestrian
just something.
for safety reasons.
Okay. Maybe we should call it as signaling improvements, rather than trying to more, keep it more generic, you can give us an update at some point. Right?
Sure.
And remove that one. And have it as signaling improvements.
The projects, on the studies.
That's,
Signaling
It's not a study, actually, it's projects.
Project, yeah.
I mean, it's sort of just an ongoing
Yeah,
thing that we do. It's not dedicated project. We can.
what else was the miscellaneous items for, yeah, then. I don't know, the bicycle licensing, is it really practical? I think we should remove it.
I don't know if they do it anyway.
Yeah, I know, it's going to be hard.
This one and this one.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
do that. So was there a PTA, feedback, meeting?
I did not attend.
You did not have the previous one, no update on that. So what is this one, the inventory of traffic lights?
It's to understand that the question here was, for example, at the intersection between Blaine and Bollinger. If you are a bike, like my bike, for example, would not trigger the traffic light at all. And I would be standing in front in the
Yeah,
intersection
yes.
for like minutes, and I had to take a dangerous turn because my bike on red, because my bike was not detected. So understanding how that works, so that you can make sure that it's better.
Maybe the sensor wasn't working there, or.
Something, I don't know. It
There's,
would be good to understand what do we have in the inventory.
there's that aspect, and then what happens is if you get a bike with carbon fiber wheels, it doesn't,
And I think that was the case.
it doesn't set off.
At some intersections.
It's something, I don't know if, yeah, if you.
Oh, it's not camera based, it's like an induction.
Is it? Well,
that intersection is in ours, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But I said in general, I've noticed that, but I got carbon fiber wheels at intersections that worked before, didn't work with bike.
Most intersections still have loops in the ground and those only detect.
Oh, I see, I see.
But if they have cameras.
Yeah,
then-
camera should
Then it
be,
doesn't matter what you're.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's good list. So one point I would say is like, today the mayor's meeting also this came up, like their council is going to have a similar list published as part of the agenda. They'll have a link so that the public can see what future items are coming up. I think we should also do the same thing, so that when right now you can look at it, but it's not intuitive. You know, you have to go and look into the minutes, and then one of the items is the future agenda item list. It's good if you can have that directly linked under the future agenda items in our agenda, so that way people can click on it and look at it. Yeah, that's a suggestion. Okay, thank you. And with that, conclude that. Yeah, we come to the end of the meeting, and time now is 9:01 p.m. And the meeting is adjourned.